Over the past 7 years, we've filled this space, we've outgrown this space, we've endured tornado threats, a pandemic, we created an online version, but the Lord will be praised that we're here and home today. This Women's History Month celebration is especially important with the death of Madeleine Albright this week. Her words, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women." It made me smile. At the confirmation hearing of Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, both of these events remind us that this is the perfect time to celebrate the giants among us. The women who will speak today are brave, they're courageous, they're fierce, and they're very accomplished. Since 2014, when the first of these forums was held, more than 70 women have come, they've shared, they've inspired, and they've empowered us, and so we expect nothing less today. The women who live and work in Haywood County are lanterns and they're ladders, and their work and their worth are immeasurable and worthy of emulation. Today, it is my great honor to introduce our speakers, but first, let me recognize my shield, the most phenomenal woman I know, Miss Alice Marie Vaughn, my mother. She's the mother of 8 and an amazing community treasure. And I don't know that my daughter is in here, but my grandbaby, Morgan, is my sidekick today, so Morgan's helping me out. So give Miss Morgan a really nice round. And without further ado, please welcome our speakers today. And I have told them they can go in any order they want to, but don't fight, so okay. Our panelists today, and if you'll stand as I call your name, Mrs. Sharon Clark, Mrs. Sandra Humphries, Mrs. Lisa Tisdale Hobson, Mrs. Ida Jarrett, Ms. Angela Lee, Mrs. Heather Pennell, and Mrs. Melinda Eckley Posey. If you're wondering how did we choose these 7 women, let me just tell you. See, the way this works is there's some of them that I know. And when I run out of people that I know, I call the other phenomenal women that I know and I ask them, okay, so recommend people. And so they have come highly recommended by previous honorees. And so if you're wondering, now you know. So without further ado, please welcome our very first speaker, whoever she is.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If it's one thing I've learned, you don't be last. And if you're supposed to go first, because the round is supposed to go higher and higher. So I don't have anything to follow right now, so I'm just on my own. First of all, I do want to say good afternoon, and I feel honored today to share my journey. It's the journey that I call my self-love journey. My self-love journey. My name is Sandra Humphries, and I'm a mom. I'm a grandmother. I'm a wife. And must I say, I'm a pastor's wife. That's a journey all by itself. And I'm a preacher's kid. That's another journey all by itself. I'm a bus driver, and I'm a compassionate teacher. You know, well over most of my life, I have found myself feeling lost. I have found myself feeling disconnected from me. This is me. Disconnected. I felt that I was burdened under the responsibility of being who everybody wanted me to be and what they wanted me to be. So disconnected until each day I strive to get the approval of everybody. I wanted to be accepted. You see, when I was young, I knew then that I was different. So when you know you're different, you're trying every opportunity just to be accepted. You know, and to add on to my disconnection, my childhood, I hid my childhood passion. Ever since I can remember wanting to be a teacher. I would play teacher, I would quilt, I would do all of that just to be that teacher. But in the circle that I was in, people would say, teachers don't make any money. Why would you teach when you can make money doing something else? So guess what? I hid that. I found jobs that paid a lot of money. Thought I was really making myself happy because I was making more money than a teacher. But guess what? It didn't work. Because I didn't hide it. I tried to hide my passion. And then, to even add more to that, I tried to be the traditional first lady. I tried to wear the hats. I tried to wear the hats, jewelry down. I tried. Sit in the corner like this. I tried. And you don't say anything unless we ask you. I tried. But there was so much inside of me that I couldn't let out. Because that was not the traditional first lady. So I had to once again not be me. Here's me still hiding for me. I'm disconnected. Trying to be what they say. I'm walking the way they say. First lady should walk like this. I'm walking the way they say I should walk. First lady should do this. Everything that everybody else wanted me to be. And still not being just who I am. I bottled up my talents. And I literally struggled with self-doubt. I even thought I wasn't really worthy because I really wasn't connected with myself. I thought I wasn't enough. Because this day they say I should be this way, and the next day I should be that way. But my. One day, the light came on. You do know that I got to say it, y'all. You do know we serve a God that has a plan and a purpose for our lives. And you can't get around it. I don't care who says what, you can't get around it. You have to be who he planned for you to be. One day, I started loving myself enough to find myself. And I say that lightly and I joke around with that because sometimes my daughter will say, Mama's just finding herself. How many of you can just say finding yourself? How many of you can relate to what I'm saying? Am I the only one? Finding myself. She was joking, Mama, she's just finding herself. I had to actually find myself. And you know, in finding myself, it wasn't easy. Let me tell you why it wasn't easy. I had disconnected from myself for so long, I didn't know what I liked, didn't know where I wanted to go, didn't know what made me happy, because I was so busy trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be. I lost my identity. But that one day, when that light bulb came on, I started desiring to search the inner man. Who am I? What am I here for? What did God plan for my life? And you know what? When I finally decided to start my journey, let me see, I gotta get my cards right because I'm skipping something. Y'all, you have I got these cards because if not, I'll be all over the place. I had come to the point where I refused to hide my authentic self. This would mean that I would no longer fit that cookie cutter model. It took several shifts and several intentional changes to reconnect with myself, to unleash myself. Yes, that does mean that I quit that high-paying job. And guess what I did? I became a teacher assistant. Paved my way to become a teacher. Here it is. It's about to work itself out. And not only that, while I worked as a teacher assistant, I enrolled in college to become a teacher. While I was doing that, guess what? I drove a bus. I drove a bus for my financial resources. Now, can you see a first lady driving the bus? Well, she driving the bus. You know, when you drive the bus, what you doing on that bus? But I had to be strong enough to know that that's me. Yes. That's me. My. And I'm proud to say, guess what? I drive a bus now. I do. But guess what? I don't look at it as a source of income. Guess what? It's my ministry. It's my ministry. God has changed my ministry. On my self-love journey, I have learned to trust God, how to understand and listen to my inner man, and to encourage myself and know that it's okay for me to be me. Just be me. It's okay. And then it came on. I made that move of moving down from principalship to a teacher. Wow. What's wrong with her? What did she do? Did y'all hear Miss Humphries got fired? What seemed as a demotion for them was a promotion for me to get where I'm supposed to be. And I can honestly say that my God was grooming me for such a time as this. Can you say for such a time as this? Our boys and girls need a teacher that cares and understands and willing to encourage them to be the best that they can be. Guess what? God placed me in room 15 at Haywood Middle School. And I see people now, what you doing there? I'm teaching. You teaching? Yes, I am. And you know what? I am happy because that's who I am. So I know my mirror's back up, but I just want to, my encouragement is, be who you are. Even if you have to go against the grain, be who you are. I've tried it. I can't be anybody but me. So I want to encourage you. Unleash yourself. They might talk about you, but guess what? They're going to talk about you anyway. That's right. They're going to talk about you because you are not doing what they think you should be doing or how they think you should be doing. Be yourself. And if you can remember anything that I say from this day forward, remember, that was the lady that told me and encouraged me to be me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon, and I didn't follow directions. I fought for the second spot. Following Mrs. Humphrey was a big mistake. Big mistake. I would first like to thank Dr. Hobson for this invitation to be here today. Not because I consider myself phenomenal in any way, and when you all have heard my story, you'll realize that I'm not. But I was born and raised in a small community 8 miles west of Henning, Tennessee, called Pleasant Hill. I have resided in Brownsville for the last 36 years. I am the youngest of 6 girls and 2 boys, and the daughter of 2 phenomenal parents, Clyde and Herdestine Hurl. My paternal great-great-grandfather's name was George Murray. His mother's name was Kizzy, and her dad's name was Kunta Kinte. I was married to the late Daniel Jarrett, and I have 5 bonus children: Larry, Corliss, Philandria, Monica, Jermaine, and a daughter, Danielle. I attended a 2-room school in Pleasant Hill for grades 1 through 8. Then an all-black school, Lauderdale High School, and then the University of Tennessee at Martin, from which I received 2 degrees. I retired with 40 years of service as an elementary school teacher from the Lauderdale County School System. I am a member of Elam Baptist Church in Ripley, Tennessee, and also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, where I am a Golden Soror with 50 years of service and a life membership. I proudly share with you all that I am also Delta Sigma Theta, Jackson Alumni Chapters 2022 Woman of the Year. In addition, I am a life member of the NAACP, and I presently serve as president of the Lauderdale County Retired Teachers Association. I thought long and hard about what I would say to my 25-year-old self. And I shared this problem with one of my young friends. She's 29. And Derek said, "That's not hard. You tell her the lottery numbers for that year." Well, I decided against that. And so I'm going to read to you a few things that I would share with my 25-year-old self. First, I would tell her that the village got it right. So she should keep believing in the things that she's been taught, because she's on the right track. Secondly, I would tell 25-year-old me to talk less and listen more, because the issues that you're facing have been faced by a lot of people. They have been there and done that. And a wise man called Otto von Bismarck said, "Wise men learn from their mistakes, but wiser men learn from the mistakes of others." Yes, right. I would also share, don't be afraid to ask you important questions. The worst answer you can probably get is probably no. A personal piece would be that I would tell myself to keep a picture and make a note of all the children that I would teach, and that way I would have names to go with the memories. And then I would sternly tell my 25-year-old self to save money and start by cutting up those credit cards 10 years earlier than had been planned. I would also share, don't worry much. Figure out what you can fix and what you can't fix, and move forward, because 20 years from that day, you won't know the difference. In addition, I would share to always be prepared. Never take a knife to a gunfight. And lastly, I would share this poem with my 25-year-old self. It says, "I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things I do, you will be just as well to turn them over to me, and I will be able to do them quickly and correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great individuals and the last of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine plus the intelligence of a human. You can run me for profit or you can run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, Train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. I am habit. All right. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about my legacy. Now, having been reared in a Black culture, we've been told already that it's not important what you leave behind in terms of money and material wealth. Well, now there's a conversation going on about generational wealth. And so we might want to rethink that. So I want to leave a little itty bitty something as a legacy. But most importantly, I want to share with my daughter the legacy that has been passed down to me by the Hurdles, the Bonds, the Lakes, and the Joneses. And that is a good name. I want to add to it in a good way. And even though I can't sing, if I could, I would sing this to you all. But I can't, so I won't. This is just a reflection of how I would like to be looked at and remembered. If I can do my duty as a Christian off, if I can bring that beauty to a world upright, if I can spread love's message that the Master taught, then my living shall not be in vain. Thank you so much for listening, and be blessed.
Well, come on, let's give God a hand. I was telling Angela, I read the wrong email. But I am so excited to be here on today behind these beautiful, elegant women on today. My name is Lisa Tisdale Hobson. I am the daughter of D.C. and Vernita Tisdale. I lived in Haywood County all of my life. I went to school there at Douglas School when it was the old Douglas School. So I went there from 74 on until we graduated. But I don't have a whole lot of history under my belt, but my mom and dad left such a great legacy for me. I am a member of the Lighthouse Church of God in Christ there in Stanton, Tennessee, where my mom and my dad built our ministry there. And I've been in church all of my life. All of my life I've been in church. So as they say, I'm a preacher's kid. And in that instance, we have I guess a realm that we're supposed to be in, being a pastor's daughter, or, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know how them pastor's daughters is. And you know, so they label you. And so, but that, like Ms. Humphries said, that wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, but I don't want to, be called no preacher's kid, But in my life, as I've grown up, I'm the fourth one of 10. My mom and dad had 10, 5 girls and 5 boys. And we were a family. Dad and mom kept us as a family. And that's what grew up in me. We had such a closeness. I was so close to my mom and dad that, they say that you never outlive. You don't supposed to bury your parents first. You know what I'm saying? So, but they lived such a great life, and they always served in the church. And so that's all I ever know was church. And when I got older, when I stayed at home, I was the last to leave home after 10. I was like, everybody's getting married and having children, and I said, Lord, you forgot about me. Where do I fit in that? He said, well, I got you. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we get in our area. We try to rush ourselves. Like, that Angela and all that got married and started having children. I'm still stuck at home with mom and dad, which was a good thing because they kept me grounded. You know what I'm saying? As I become a teenager, I began to, you know how we was back in the day. We wanted to kind of raise the roof and do our thing. But my mom and dad would always say, if you're in this house and you're under my roof and I'm feeding you, come on here. You will do what I say do. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't about me, but they raised me up in such a good way. Have I always done the right thing? No. A lot of times we sneaked out, went to the club, did our deal, you know what I mean? And I thought that was a part of who I was supposed to be, you know what I'm saying, undercover, But as I grew and as I realized my mom and dad, they served, like I said, I'm a big part of them because that's all I ever known, you know what I'm saying? So if today I stand here, I just turned 57, and so I'm just out there now, and I realized a lot of the things that my mom and dad taught me, I was like, back then we didn't want to hear it. We like, but I want to do this and I want to do that. But as I got old, I realized it wasn't about me. It's about God's purpose for me. And at that time, you don't see that. Be like, I just want to do this, I want to do that. But once, like Ms. Humphries said, we find ourselves in the place where we should be. You know what I'm saying? It all pans out. So as I grew up, and the Lord called me when I was at an early age. I was like, what? You mean I can't do this? I can't do that? That's like, and he always would, I would talk to God like I'm talking to you all. So having a relationship with him is so important. But that's all I ever grew up on. So when he began to tell me the things that I'm supposed to do, I'm like, what? I got to stop doing this or stop doing that? That ain't gonna be right with me. I got to do something. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to let my teenage year run by me. You know what I'm saying? So as I got older, I moved out on my own in 1986. I said, now once I leave home, now Mom and Dad, I ain't coming back now. So don't look for me. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you move out and bring about 10 along with you when you come back. It's like, nah, not me. But I moved out on my own at 86, and my mama cried for weeks, and Dad said, well, daughter, we've raised you. So, you're on your own now, so you have to do the right thing for you. So you have to make your way now. So I was like, what, on my own? So when I moved out on my own in 1986, I got a job, and I worked 24 years in the nursing home there in Somerville, Tennessee. And I found my purpose. And everybody thought, I was supposed to, people supposed to wait on me, but I ended up waiting on people. And that was my passion, just to serve. I watched my mom and dad serve all of their lives. In the church, out the church, they were servers. And I guess I got that gene from them. So I worked there 24 years and everything. So when I said, well, that's not enough for me, so I'm gonna try to find something else, you know what I'm saying? So by the time I met my awesome husband, his name is Hobson, and so I met him, and everything just kind of evolved, because I was like, well, Lord said, well, it took me 20 years. I'm telling you, ladies, you want something good? Wait on me. Wait on. And they said, you mean you wait 20 years? I said, I sure did. I'm ashamed to say it. But at that time, God was preparing me for what's best for me. A lot of times we're looking and trying to grab what we want. But we have to realize it's not about us. It's about his purpose. So when I met Quentin, I was like, ooh, he was just the best thing that was going, I thought. You know what I'm saying? So we've been married 12 years, and it's been a good 12 years. Like I said, I haven't been through no, beatings and all this kind of stuff because he was a good man. He's a truck driver, been driving trucks for like 14 years, and he made good money. Come on, somebody. So we love that. But you know what? When I met him, he was just such a good man. You know what I'm saying? I was like, he said, while you was at home, I was making him for you. He said, what did you say? And I tell you, he has been such a blessing. So if you wait on, I know it's not always the way sometimes, women, we want what we want when we want it. Y'all know how we is. But I tell you, if you wait on the Lord, I promise you, you will not regret it. He has been my leaning post, because when my mom and dad left here, I thought that was it for me. I was like, I ain't gonna make it. But then God placed him in my life and helped encourage me through my weakest hour. He was right there. He was that leaning post I need. So with God, I'm telling you, ladies, if you get a relationship with God, he will take you through. And I know a lot, and we all have struggles. Even now I struggle with some things, you know what I'm saying? But having a relationship, that's my foundation. My foundation is with God. And you know what I'm saying, my upbringing. that I was brought up with. So I encourage you women today. I don't care what it look like, what it seems like, or what people think you ought to be, and who you're supposed to be. Wait on the Lord. Because I promise you, you know what I'm saying? He will give you what you need. And some what you want sometimes. But you have to know within yourself, your self-goodness. And so then I know my 10 minutes up. So I got into school, so my husband said, well, you ain't got to work no more. You know them famous words y'all want to hear? Don't y'all be trying to get y'all know. I said, what? You don't have to work? I said, I worked all my life. He said, I know. He said, that's why when I married you, I knew it. You wouldn't marry me for my money. Because you was already set up. Come on, somebody. I had my own house, my own car, brand new. I mean, God had really blessed me. So I waited on the Lord to do that for me. Because I could have had any, Dick, Tom, or Harry, to come back, that I love you, this and that. But I had a purpose. And I said, Lord, I want the purpose that you have for me. I want to do the will of your work. So he prepared me. And at that long waiting, 20 years for Quentin, he worked some work in me. He established me. So he said, when I married you, I knew you didn't need my money, because you was already set up. Come on, somebody. You was already set up, so you weren't like some of them, you need my money, you don't get my money. But God had established me, so I was able to just really go and do his work. And that's what I love so much now is ministry. Ministry is my life, because he has brought me through so much. And so I just want to encourage you women. Hold on. I don't care what it looked like again. We say, well, I struggle with this, and my thing is family. Because God ordained that thing, and the enemy tried to tear it up. But we as women of God and men of God, we got to keep that thing together. Because now that the children are so, I'm in the school system, and I can see such brokenness, come from, we never know. A little boy the other day said, I just want to kill myself. In the 5th grade, I'm like, Jesus. And I just began to pray for him and I said, Lord, touch his mind. I know we ain't at church, but I'm just saying, the children are hurting. And that's why we as women of God, we have to stand up and say, devil, use a lie. I'm sorry, you're not going to have my child because I'm going to put him in the Lord's hand. So we need that. We need that foundation. We need God in our lives. Because that's nowadays, and God has been good to we're here because we know what we're in the middle of a pandemic. But we are here, so we're thankful that we weren't one of the millions that was caught and died from it. God is so gracious. And so I'm glad on today that I have a relationship with him. After it all said and done, after you get home and put the wig on the dresser, I still can be who God has called me to be. Come on, put up the wig. But I tell you, I thank God. I'm the secretary there at the church, and I learned everything from my dad. I was like, how are we going to carry this ministry on without dad and mama? They was the root of this thing. They built this ministry. And so God said, I got you. So don't worry, I got you. And I thank God we've been there 23 years, 12 without mom and dad. So that let me know, hey, we ain't got no mega ministry or nothing. Come on here. But I tell you, if God's in the midst, you can do it. What will he say we can? He said, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And so in my weakest hour, ladies, we can be strong. He told us be bold in him. Don't be scared, because y'all know what? The enemy ain't scared. That's right. He on the rampage. But he said, behold, I give you the power to spread on everything that the enemy does to you. Because I'm there for you. And women, when it seems like you don't know which way to turn, get on them knees. I learned that from my mama. Get on them knees. Talk to God. He's there. Many times I did like Hezekiah. I turned my face to the wall. I said, Lord, you know. And he said, go back and tell it, I'm going to add some more to it. Because of your faithfulness. Come on here. So I'm thankful on today that God has been my shield and my buckler. So ladies, hang in there. Don't care what, you know what I'm saying? It seems like ain't nothing going to happen. And you ain't going to meet that man. But God can be that man and that woman for you. He can carry you through anything. So I encourage you today. If you don't have a prayer life, get a prayer life with God. You got unsaved children, pray. That's what we're here for. He said the effectual prayer of a righteous what? Availeth much. So we can't stop praying because we're in the midst of a pandemic. That's what the devil wants us to do. But we got to be bold in the Lord. Be strong. Be very courageous. And sometimes it's going to take us out of our comfort zone. So don't think it's all going to be all peaches and cream. But with God. So y'all ladies, hang on in there. I encourage you today. Hang on in there. Get that relationship with God. Build your hopes up on things that's eternal. And I tell you what. And if you do that, no weapon. Can you help me say no weapon? No weapon. That is formed against you shall prosper. Y'all pray my strength in the Lord.
Good afternoon. So my picture on the poster, wherever it is first.
Okay.
But I came in here and was told I couldn't be first. Ms. Humphries over here said I'm first. Ms. Jarrett said I'm second. And Ms. Hobson said I'm third. But let me at fourth. And now I come to say, whew, I'm almost ready to walk out the door. I want to thank Ms. Dr. Bond Hobson for inviting me. And it was funny because when I got the call, or I think it was a call and a voicemail, and advising me that I had been nominated by others in the community. And I thought, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this? So thank you for having me here today. For those of you who don't know who I am, which to me, I'm nobody. I'm just a person out here trying to do what I was put on this earth to do, and that's be me and bring light to somebody else that may need it, not know they need it, or just deserve it. But I am the granddaughter of Mr. Calvin and Betty Douglas of Douglas Community. That is my mom's parents. My father's parents were Mr. Giorgio Lee and Miss Annie Mae Lee from Cocoa. So my parents are from the Douglas community, or Stanton, Haywood County, but they are from here, and I've always had a part of that in my heart. Even though I was born in Millington, Tennessee, my dad was in the Army, and we stayed here, I think, about a year. And then we moved to Michigan, and I spent my formative years living in Michigan, and it was a different world because I wanted to be here because that's where my grandparents were. That was where my cousins, that I call my sister cousins, were. One of them, shout out, is in the back there. And the other ones I know are watching. But I wanted to be here and be part of them. But what my parents did when we were in Michigan, we made sure that the people who migrated north, they were there. We spent our times together. We spent our weekends together. We spent our holidays together. And many a times, if it was a trip back here, we all went together. And it's this crazy thing. You'd see 3 or 4 cars from Michigan traveling south to come back here and be at home with our loved ones. So that has always been a very formative part of my life, knowing that family is here and meant a lot to me, my family, and they wanted to make sure that I didn't lose sight of that. A lot of people I meet, and when I tell them, I'm like, I'm related to this person, and I'm related to this person, and they're like, you know all your cousins? And I'm like, yeah, kind of I do. But that's a good thing, because you never know where in the world you might be, and you cross one, and you're like, oh, that's a family member. And I've done that and been somewhere, sitting in Chicago shopping, and someone walks up and says, oh, we're related. That's a beautiful thing to know that you have family out there. Some people don't have that, and they never will. And nor do they want it, and they don't know what they're missing. So with that said, family is a big part of my world. In '77, I was blessed with a younger brother, so our family of 3 became 4, and I became a big sister. Now, my mom will say that I didn't want a brother, or I wanted to be an only child. That's what she would probably say. And then we had this bond. He and I formed this bond that was, it's a beautiful thing because we talk and we spend our time together. If he's going through something, he knows that I am there for him. If I'm going through something, I know that he's there for me. He still calls me big sis, and it's funny because my brother's like 6'4", and he's a big guy, and I'm always his big sis, and I'm like, no, really, I'm your little sister. But it's a funny thing because there's 7 years between us, but the fact that we've held this relationship and this bond, and we can have that, it's a blessing for me. I've become very proud of the man that he's become. He is a husband to his beautiful wife, Amber. He has 3 kids, Justice, Braden, and Bryson, and those are my world. I don't have children, but those 3 little people, everything that I do, I'm like, okay, it's for them. You know, I want to leave something that they get to partake in. I know that they have grandparents that are going to give to them as well, but I know that I'm going to do my part to make sure that they have something from their auntie, because I love to hear them call out, "Auntie, it's you." So that is something big for me. Moving on, as I grew up, I attended college and I never finished and got a degree. And that has been a point of contention for me for so long in life. I realized when not having that degree forced me to have to work harder, and it forced me to have to prove myself. And when you have to prove yourself without that piece of paper, it's hard. It's a hard fight. It is a hard fight for a woman. It is a hard fight for a Black woman. And I knew I had to do it because I came from, my dad got a degree. He went on and he was a teacher at one point. He went into sales and he worked for a really good company. My mom had a really good job. So I knew I couldn't fail in their eyes, but I knew I had to do something that was going to make me work harder and get the things that I wanted in life. So if I had to do over, I would get a degree as my parents suggested, and just do that for myself, so I wouldn't have to fight as hard that battle, because what I learned about a degree, it can never be taken away from you. So for all those kids that are out there saying, I don't need it, if you don't get a degree, find something that you know that you can make a living, make a life with, because not having that piece of paper, it definitely makes life a little bit harder for you. But in '97, after working many jobs and doing things, I remember I started with Ameritech, which is now AT&T, and it was funny because I remember as a little girl, my grandmother saying, stop all that giggling and talking. And when I started working at AT&T, I thought, oh my goodness, I get to get paid talking. That's what I'm going to do, is talk and get paid doing it. And it was a beautiful thing. The customers that I met, the people I came in contact with, the sales team, I got, at one point I was working for someone, and then I got my own store, and then I got a bigger store, and I got to pick my own sales team, and it was a beautiful thing because that sales team and my work ethic and how I aligned my staff, it awarded me or rewarded me different trips that I got to take on the company. So there's nothing better than taking an all expense paid trip somewhere and not having to pay a dime for it. That is a beautiful thing. So I am truly blessed that I was able to get in with AT&T and do that work and have somebody believe in me to give me the opportunity to take on a store and sell and just do what I do, which came naturally because, as I said, my dad was a person of sales. So then in 2015, I decided I was ready to take on a new responsibility. I have been in retail for so long. I had worked 18 years in retail. And in that 18 years, I thought, it's time for something new. I want a different part of the AT&T business. I remember meeting a VP in a different area, and he said, the only way for you to keep your value within this company is to grow. And to grow means you've got to move. You've got to move out of your comfort zone. You've got to move somewhere else. You've got to go to a level that you never thought was obtainable. And in my world back then, people didn't leave out of the retail and go over to the corporate side. It just wasn't something that was happening quite a lot. So in 2015, I applied for these jobs, but I did it differently. I didn't apply in Michigan. I said, I'm moving to Tennessee. I'm gonna move to Tennessee. So my boyfriend and I, DJ sitting in the back, on the back row, shout out to him. We decided to move here to Tennessee, and I took on this role on the corporate side. But it was not just that part of it. I also came because at the time, my grandfather, who was 98 at the time, I believe, was living by himself, and he had people that would come and check on him, but he needed somebody in the house. I came to be in the house with him. I came to be part of his world, to make sure everything went smoothly, and just to know that he was taken care of. I did that for him because my parents, they wanted to make sure the schooling that I did get, they took care of that. So I did something for them to make sure that my grandfather was taken care of, and that was something I did from the heart, that I gave back to them. But being in that house with him, oh my goodness, it taught me patience. It taught me that I can't always have it my way. This is not Burger King. I don't get to make the sandwich. I just gotta go with the flow. And when a person who's 98 plus years old says, all I want for breakfast is 2 pieces of toast, 2 pieces of bacon, and 2 eggs, and a cup of coffee, and if it's at 2 in the afternoon or 8 o'clock at night, that's what you do. That's what you do, because I needed to make his world as comfortable as possible. I needed to make the norm for him stay the norm, not set him out of his comfort zone. He had lived his life. He had done all the things that he needed to do. He had left us a legacy, and I needed to make sure that I kept him just the way he needed to be in his home, being taken care of. I remember the stories that he would tell me. One of them, some of the stories that he never really talked about being in the war, but he did talk about meeting Jackie Robinson when he had come home from Burma and he was living in New York. And I thought, okay, my grandfather met Jackie Robinson, how awesome is that? But I also remember the little stories that he would tell about his family and his father and just the work that he did before as a young man. So that meant something to me, because now I have those stories and I get to pass them on to my nieces and nephews, and I have it within me to know that I spent that time to learn about him, and that makes me feel good that I gained that patience, but I also got the value of being with an elder who, realizing their knowledge that they bring to this world, their stories, and just their presence in our lives. So that meant a whole lot to me. As these stories, or as these lessons have taught me through life, to be a phenomenal woman, it's kind of funny because when I think of phenomenal women, I don't think of me, because I'm like, this is just me every day. I don't go out the way to do extraordinary or extraordinary. I go out the way just to be the person that I am. And I look for things that I can make better, but it's just me being me. But like I said, when I think of phenomenal women, I think of the women who've excelled in professional fields, be it arts and education and politics, music and entrepreneur and religion or civil human rights activists. I think of like our First Lady Michelle Obama. I think of our Vice President Kamala Harris. I think of the nominee Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. I think of Dr. Edith Faye Peterson Mitchell. That is a lot to say. I think of Dr. Johnetta Walker and Neal. I think of Dr. Cynthia Von Hobson. I think of my best friend who's an entrepreneur out in Chicago who is doing big things, because if you don't have these people doing them, and if you don't align yourself with them, you're missing out, because you might not know what your purpose is, but aligning yourself with women who are strong and doing things and making moves will help you find what your purpose and passion is. I think of my aunt, Miss Ann Banks Lee, and I think of my mother, Miss Sharon Lee, who's sitting on the 3rd row back, I think that is, recording this. But I think of all of the beautiful women that I have had in my life, and I am blessed. I am truly blessed to know that these women are here for me. They are here to give me advice. They are here to say, yeah, you know you were wrong. They are here to tell me when they can point me down a different path. So I am thankful for that. But one of the biggest women that's in this, that has been a part of my life, who is no longer here, man, my grandmother, Miss Betty Reed Douglas, for those who didn't know her. Before the movie Soul Food, before Big Mama's House, before those were the trend, on any given Sunday, my grandmother would open her doors and feed people. It was my grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, and my uncle. And then she had all of these others that she had taken on as her children. And it was always funny because people would come in and I was like, you call my grandma mama? How is that? That's not your mother. I know who your mother is. But they called her mama because they valued her. They knew that she was somebody, a pillar in the community, and that she had a heart of giving. And with that, you would find family members and friends, and I learned not too long ago, my grandmother was big back, I don't even know what years these were, but there were blues singers that would come to Stanton. There was I guess they call them juke joints maybe, but there was a juke joint that was in Douglas community, but they knew my grandmother, and she would invite them to parties. I have the pictures, which is crazy to see my grandmother partying like that, but it looked like so much fun, and I was like a wee little person, so that was like maybe 60s, 70s, but my grandmother was big on giving, big on opening up her heart and her house to those in need. So I feel that is why, for me, always doing and always helping is a part of me. It's just natural. My mother does it, and I remember when I went away to school and I came back and I'd be like, Mom, I'm home, and I brought so many people with me, and my mom would be like, okay, set the table for one more. So that's just a part of our world and always has been. My grandmother, though, was very active in the community. She was also a civic she also was a civic organization, or belonged to. She was a member of the NAACP and participated in the struggle for desegregation of public schools, the right to vote, and gain equal justice for all. She was also recognized by Jet magazine, so you know if it's in Jet, it's real. I don't know if you've all ever heard that or not, but it is true. But she was in Jet, October 1st, 1959. We still have the copy of that edition. But it saluted individuals that made a major contribution to eradicate businesses that discriminated against Negroes and Blacks or people of color. By trade, my grandmother, I don't think there was anything my grandmother couldn't do. If she had, the one thing I think she wasn't able to do was drive an 18-wheeler. My grandmother would drive all the way to Michigan. She had a really nice big conversion van. She would drive all the way there by herself. And it was like, really, you did that? But she would come to be with family. She would drive the school bus. She would drive the health clinic bus. And on my vacations home, I would ride with her. If that's not the biggest joy of a kid, is like, I get to be on the school bus and not go to school, but get to be on the school bus and not have to go to school. That was awesome. And for all of you who know, what is it, I guess the Highway 70, those dips, it was always the best fun. She would take those dips out like there was nobody's business. So I truly appreciate all of that I was given by her. Spending that time with her. My grandmother also formed carpools to secure transportation for those who didn't have transportation. So I look at it as my grandmother had the vision for Uber before Uber even happened. So I think that is a very, that's like kind of like, darn, I should have had that. I should have been the one to create Uber. If we had just thought about it before, maybe that was something we could have done. But my grandmother was a God-fearing woman, and that is a beautiful thing. Although she's gone, my grandmother was a phenomenal woman. She was a legacy, and I am a work in progress to create my own legacy because I have been blessed with women in my life, women and men, but women in my life that matter and made sure that they gave me the know-how, the road to being what a legacy is. And legacy doesn't mean that you have to have a lot of money. Legacy isn't, you gotta have the biggest house and all the fancy clothes, although it helps and it's fun. But just having a legacy that makes you feel like you are a part of something. My dad gave me this, and I love what it is. It's called the 4 L's, and it says, living a life that matters, leaving a place better than you found it, leading from wherever you are, and loving something greater than yourself. I think that is something that is really, really true to me. I was just recently voted in as the president of the Douglas Community Center, and when it first happened, I thought, okay, they just want face. And then it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter what they want. I'm gonna do the job that I know to do, and I'm going to go out and find people and get people to come and participate and be part of this center and make it something, because it was important to my grandmother and all of the people of the Douglas community, and I'm gonna make it important to me as well. So I leave you with this passage. She is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not compared unto her. Proverbs 3:15. Thank you.
Hello. It is hard to follow these women up. I am not feeling phenomenal today, but these women certainly are. Thank you, Dr. Hobson, for inviting me to be here. I am Heather Pennell. I have lived in Brownsville for 10 years now. I'm married to Ryan. We've been married for 16 years. We have 4 kids. We have 3 boys, aged 14, 13, and 7, and I have 1 daughter who's 10, going on 16. You know how that is. Well, I have a degree in Egyptology from the University of Memphis. I have worked mainly from home for an internet network security company for the last 16 years. I'd love to be involved in Brownsville's community. I'm on the board here of the Delta Heritage Center. I'm on the board of the Brownsville Arts Council. I'm an amateur actress with Ms. Clark, right? We have a good time. I am a member of First United Methodist Church, where I'm in the choir, and I teach adult Sunday school. I am a Cub Scout den leader. I am a Boy Scout fundraising mom, and I am the Girl Scout troop cookie manager. I'm sure there's something else I do. I cannot say no to anything. But I'm also a huge supporter of Haywood County public schools. I think they're just fabulous. But today, I really feel led to talk about the lessons I have learned in my life about the stigmas of women's mental health and mental illness and how it affects women. It's really important this Women's History Month in March to recognize the legacy of harmful attitudes towards women's mental health, from the stigmas and falsehoods that surround it in the past to the challenges that still keep many women from speaking out today and getting the help they need. I grew up learning stories and hearing the stories of my maternal grandmother's mental health. She was insane, crazy, scary from the stories. She was in and out of mental hospitals my early life, and her diagnosis changed as mental health changed. Before 1980, the common diagnosis for women with mental illness was hysteria. It wasn't just a flat out, that's your diagnosis. As the 80s and 90s progressed, we got other terms: schizophrenia, whether or not it was, bipolar, manic depressive. But to a young girl, these words are terrifying. We were never allowed to be alone with her, and the stories about her and her illness were just nightmarish. My mother had her own mental health issues, and when my sisters and I were 4, 5, and 6, she took off and left. My parents divorced, and we did not see her for quite a while. We were raised by our father. Eventually, we did visit with her on occasion, but always timidly, as the stigma of her mental wellness was something we always had on our minds. I had my first experience with my own mental health issues when I was in high school. My dad briefly dated a psychiatric nurse who was concerned I was anorexic and sent me to a psychologist and psychiatrist. And they bounced my diagnoses from anorexia to ADHD to OCD to manic depression. And they put me on some serious medications. Well, I really didn't like the stigma, and I didn't want to be like my mom or my grandmother. So as soon as they broke up, I didn't have to go to those doctors anymore. But I did really well. I was still incredibly high-strung, always had high anxiety, an extremely codependent people pleaser. But I was living a good quality of life, and it did not keep me from succeeding in my goals. In 2007, my husband and I had our first baby. It was an overwhelming experience. We had over 20 people waiting in the waiting room, and after he was born, everyone had advice to follow, and as a people pleaser, that was enough. On top of that, my dad and sisters and I had a major falling out. As much as I was codependent on them, they were also codependent on me, and now I had a new family with my husband and my son. So we became estranged from the time Buck was born for several years. I was alone. To add more stress, my husband was laid off the week Buck was born. Luckily, my full-time job as a sales representative was converted to an inside sales job, and I could work from home. Now I'm working from home with a new baby, and my husband's at home. A blessing and a challenge. So I had to adjust to this new life. There were lots of tears, sadness, and I began questioning if I was capable of even being a mother, a word I never had a positive association with. But before I could even rein any of these emotions out, I was pregnant again, 5 months later. I had to focus on that, and I had a new baby, and when he was born, I will never forget, my husband Ryan went out of his way to make sure the birth was calm and peaceful. It was like India. We had no one in waiting, we had minimal visitors after his birth, and it was truly peaceful. However, when we got home, the tears started again. So many tears. And Ryan was so frustrated because how did we still not get this right? We changed everything, and I felt guilty because I couldn't get control over my own emotions. This was next level hard. The week Theodore was born, my husband went back to work. He had found a job. Praise God. That was amazing. But I now was alone. I was estranged from my family. I didn't have any close friends. But thankfully, I have an amazing mother-in-law who was there for me, but mental health was nothing her family ever had to deal with, and they didn't ever talk about. It wasn't something I could discuss with her. My favorite memory of this time was a day when I was home alone right after Theodore was born, trying to navigate how I was going to work with a 1-month-old and a running at full speed 15-month-old, crying and constant changings. I called her in desperation. This is so hard. I was crying. She was so calm and so serious. She said, Heather, put those babies in their cribs. They're going to keep crying, but you know they're safe. Now leave the room, sit down, and take some breaths. After a few minutes, she laid it out for me. Heather, yes, this is hard, but only you can do this. You have to put on your big girl panties and figure this out. I did, and I do that every day. Now, we laugh about this now, but she is horrified, especially now, because she didn't know that I was having my own mental health issues. But she was right. As women, it is just what we have to do. We have to pull up our big girl panties. It's our great responsibility to care for these children. Back to the story. It's obvious now that I was going through the baby blues, the postpartum anxiety and depression that affects so many women, but it's rarely discussed and it's strongly stigmatized. This depression and anxiety kept snowballing, and I did not want to accept it. I was getting weird. I was taking my boys to the pediatrician 3 days a week, every week. Certain there was something wrong with them. I couldn't take the anxiety until the pediatrician grabbed me and she said, Heather, she looked me straight in the eyes and she said, they are okay. They are healthy. Okay, so I stopped taking the kids to the doctor. Now I'm going to the doctor 3 times a week. I'm sure I'm having a heart attack, or I have an ulcer, I have a brain tumor. We are spending thousands on testing. Whew, it was a lot. It was very expensive. Then one morning, the snowball of depression avalanched and my mind broke. Psychosis set in. It's a rare form of postpartum depression that no one ever wants to talk about. It's still hard for me to talk about now. The stigma is still there. The psychosis that comes along with it is severe suspicion, paranoia, voices. It's nothing you want to admit to, ever. So, luckily, there is an actress, Brooke Shields, who actually wrote a book about her postpartum depression and her postpartum psychosis, and broke the veil. But it was still hard to move forward. I didn't even want to tell my husband. I lived in this nightmare for about 3 years. I had my daughter during it, and it still would not go away. I was afraid to get help. I didn't want anyone to know, and no one could know. I would smile through it all. Every day, woke up smiling, but my brain was in a lockdown mode. I finally started telling my husband some of what was going on and that I needed professional help. But he was afraid I would lose my insurance or even my job if I needed medication or needed to go to therapy. Finally, God stepped in.
All right.
Thank you. We moved to Brownsville, and I had hoped and prayed and wished that this huge move would take over the nightmare that was going on in my head. It didn't, but where am I? The move brought me to my church and introduced me to my friends who would rescue me. The first set of friends that helped were the Converses. They were so open about mental health and illness. They would talk at Sunday school and social activities about medications they were on, the disorders they had, the counseling they'd go to. I was like, wow, this is normal. All of a sudden, this is being talked about. I was like, maybe I'll be okay, but I was still afraid to say anything because their conditions weren't like my conditions. I was positive I needed to be in a hospital with restraints and sedated. That's what my brain was telling me. New Year's 2013 came and I woke up New Year's Day still in this nightmare world in my mind, and I couldn't carry on another year or another day. I was so scared. I called Clark and Amy Converse. They dug in and called around, finding me a doctor. I was sure I needed a hospital, but they were able to find me a psychologist to see me immediately and a psychiatrist who would also be there to prescribe medicine. It needs to be said that this is not a common thing for mental health. It usually takes months to get in to see a doctor if you can find one taking new patients. From here, I started my journey with my husband to understand mental illness. I had postpartum depression and a psychosis about having a psychosis. It took some time, but before New Year's Eve 2014, I was me again, which was good because a couple months later, I was pregnant again. Luckily, I had zero mental health issues with that pregnancy. My doctor safely adjusted my medication. I had a support group. I had a friend who showed up every single day, and she's here today, so I really appreciate that. And I still struggle with the stigma. This is still really hard to talk about. I still take medications, and I still beat myself up. For some seasons, I might need to have an increase of my medication, and I feel like it's my fault, but it's not. The lesson here is to break the stigma of mental health. The lesson is to know that I am not my mother or my grandmother. I'm me, and I can triumph over this. I would tell my 25-year-old self that mental issues do not define you, and you will survive if you ask for help. My legacy is to share this knowledge and to advocate for mental health issues. It might not help anyone in here today, but maybe someone will mention they heard a speech about mental illness, and someone listening will be inspired to reach out and get the care they need. Thank you.
Well, I can relate to just about everything every woman on this panel has said. Thank you all for sharing. I want to say thank you to Ms. Hobson for this opportunity and for Sonia for making this possible. And let me just say to all you phenomenal ladies out there and gentlemen as well, thank you all for being here because you didn't have to come. So we're so appreciative. Give you a disclaimer before I get started. I have my fan and I have paper towels because I'm at the age where I have hot flashes. And one of the things that we were told was to kind of think about what you would tell your 25-year-old self. And before I even introduce myself, let me just tell you, I would have warned her about these hot flashes and some other things that we did go through with menopause. Because people teach us as young ladies about puberty. Nobody teaches us about menopause. And so I had no idea. So if I can help somebody along the way, let me just tell you now. My name is Sharon Clark. I was born here in Haywood County. I went to elementary school here. I left here around 6th grade, moved to Memphis with my mom, where I attended Cherokee Elementary, Sherwood Junior High, and Melrose High School, which is where I graduated. I came back here to spend the summer with my grandmother before attending what was then Memphis State. While I was here, I took a job at Hardee's for the summer, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit, but that just kind of changed my whole journey. Because we have these plans in life, and then life happens, and it kind of changes your plans, but that's all right, because we know that God is the master planner, so it's all is well. I belong to Family Life Fellowship with Pastor Andre Johnson. Visionary is my pastor. I am married to Coach Rodney Clark of the Haywood Crusaders. We have almost 33 years of marriage under our belt. We have 3 adult children, a set of twins who are 27, and our youngest is 24, and I get those ages mixed up since they're grown. I listened to some things. I listened to Heather talking about when she had her children. When we had our twins, we were first-time parents. People always say, well, what was harder, 1 or 2? I said, I have no idea what one was like. I never only had one. I was about 2. And so, like her, here I am now, we're young parents. He has to go to work. I'm all alone with 2 crying babies all day long. They never slept at the same time. So I was never getting any sleep. And I was out one day, and an older gentleman, I used to work at had transferred from the Hardee's in Brownsville to the Hardee's in Dyersburg. And an older gentleman, those older guys that come and get coffee every morning at Hardee's, they just sit around and talk. So they pay attention. They may not say anything, but they pay attention. The older gentleman said to me, he said, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I just had twins. He said, no. He said, there's something else. He said, seems like you may not be well. And so I had a conversation with my mother about it, and she said, both of the twins are sleeping at different times, and you're never getting any sleep. She said, you're not taking care of yourself. She said, if you don't take care of yourself, she said, you will be no good for those twins. So she too told me, she said, make sure they're fed and they're dry. Put them in the crib, let them cry. She said, you have to close the door. If it bothers you to hear them crying, they're gonna be all right. And so I learned to do that, and guess what? They're all right. I spent the summer with my grandmother before going to Memphis State while I was at Hardee's, and I met Rodney Clark. I did go to Memphis State. I did not stay there long because I was trying to go to college, work a full-time job, and court this man. And all that was not a good mix. So I ended up coming back to Brownsville. We got married. We had babies. Life happens. I dropped out of college. I'm just going on with life. People are constantly saying, you need to go back to school. So that's been quite a while back, and online courses were not readily available like they are now. That really was not a thing that you heard of very often. So I really couldn't see how in the world I was going to get back to school, because I'm now raising these twins, and I need to work to help put food on the table, and this is just how life is. I started to work at the Family Resource Center here in Brownsville, and I was happy there. It was a great place because I was working in the school system, my kids were in the school system, all is well. And then we shift leadership. Now when leadership changes, things just change. And we got a new leader, and I noticed that a lot of people were leaving. They were going somewhere else because they had options. And then some people were getting fired, and they were still going somewhere else because they had options. But I thought to myself, if I get fired, where am I going? I don't have options. And so like this young lady right here, I realized, all right, you better get your act together. And my kids were also getting older, and I'm thinking to myself, they're gonna grow up one day. And what am I gonna do with my life? So at that point, I did go back to school. And I kept asking God, because I was at the Family Resource Center, Miss Peggy Jackson. The Family Resource Center is a joint project between the school system and UT, yes, thank you. So, Miss Peggy Jackson is awesome. She took good care of me. Anything I needed, she did. I mean, it was just a perfect place for me. But she didn't make all of the calls because of, other leadership. And I kept saying, Lord, why did you put this other person in my life? I was like, I was doing great. I was happy, but why? I enrolled back into college. And as soon as I enrolled back into college, God moved that person out of my life. I said, ooh. She was there to push me to where I need to go. Because we can get real comfortable doing what we're doing. And we can sit there and we can stay there forever and never move. But God has a way to get you where you need to be. Going back to Ms. Humphries, talking about how in her journey to become a teacher, or to be a teacher, how she took a principal role. And she talked about how she left that role to go into teaching. And people looked at it as a demotion. But may I tell you that every place God has on this journey has a purpose. Because while, go ahead, hand raise up. While she was a principal, I became a teacher. She became my principal. She made such an impact in my life. I would not be doing what I'm doing the way I'm doing that had it not been for her. She was one of my greatest supporters. I thank you so much. So today I moved out of a teaching position into an administrative position. And I thank God for every opportunity along the way. Teaching has really served me well. When I became a teacher, I had the opportunity to become a PBS digital innovator. PBS has flown me to Chicago. PBS has flown me to Philadelphia. I had never been to either place before at that time. Because their door opened, another company, Edmodo, flew me to California to speak for them as well. They opened the door for me to be keynote speaker for Metro Nashville's librarian and technology department. The national organization, don't let me get it wrong, because they're going to kill me if I don't say this right. The National Organization of Phi Delta Kappa recognized me as their Teacher of the Year a few years back, and then I became a member of that group. So it's just that one door would lead to another door. And doors were open one after another, one after another, one after another. Now, I got so used to God just opening doors that it kind of spoiled me that way. Every once in a while, a door would open. And I find myself, not literally, but proverbially, kicking, banging on the door, trying to figure out why this door won't open, why this door won't open, why this door won't open. I mean, and I saw a quote on Facebook one day. And it said, until God opens the door, I'll praise him in the hallway.
All right.
That changed everything for me. That did it for me. Sometimes doors don't open. I don't get frustrated. I'm not mad. Because I know that God has something better. Let me say this about when I went to education. I still have this. I asked my principal, Ms. Humphries, because I want to go to all these PD. I'm the PD queen. I'm going to tell y'all that right now. I want to go to all these conferences and these PDs. I want to grow myself. And there was the very first conference I wanted to go to. I asked her, I said, if you want to go to a conference, what do you do? She said, well, you come to the right place. She said, it's the first step. You come to your principal, and your principal sends it to the next person. And blah, 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 there's a change of man. And I understand it. In a school system, there are so many people needing so many things, and people's hands are tied. I get that. But when you're wanting to do something, you just want to do something. So, the very first thing I wanted to do, the answer came back as no. Y'all, I was devastated. I was like, why do I want to do this? And I was frustrated, but it was not long before God gave me something better. The next time I asked for something that I got to know, it wasn't long before God gave me something better. The next time I asked for something and I got to know, it wasn't long before God gave me something better. I began to see the pattern. I began to look for me and say no, knowing that my God was going to give me something better. And so you all, that's how I've been living my life. Just here recently, somebody said no. And you know what, for a split second, it frustrated me. I thought, oh girl, wait a minute. You got to remember when man says no, God has something better. And I thank God for that. And I honestly, here's another thing. So people see you doing things, and they just kind of want to help you along the way. And there have been some people that show up and say, hey, you know what? I can make this happen for you. I can do this. I can do that. But I found that every time a person showed up, God never let their door open. He would move that person somehow. And when the person was out the way, then God would open the door. God had taught me, don't start depending on me. I have been here all along, doing what you asked me to do. Don't start depending on me. I got you. Let me say to the young lady about the degree where you feel like without a degree you had to work hard and you had to prove yourself. even with a degree, you still got to work hard. You still got to prove yourself every day. So don't fret about that. Before I got a degree, and let me back up about the degree. So I told you when my kids start to get older, I start to think, okay, when they grow up, what am I going to do with myself? Well, I arose to go back to school. By then, my twins were coming into puberty. And oh gosh, when kids are coming into puberty, my middle child, whoo, she was giving us the blues. My husband was sick at the time, and I thought to myself, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do all this. So this is what I told myself. I said, you go back in the role, and you get started, and if you have to take a break in between semesters, you take your break, but you jump back in every time. I had no idea that God would bring me this far. I now have my EDS, with dreams of that doctorate, and I just thank God. I never had to stop because I knew that my family would come first. They were most important to me, but I never had to stop. God was taking care of them, and He was taking care of me, and He was making it work. So I am so grateful to Him today for all of that. You all, our instructions were to think about what you would say to your 25-year-old self. I write a lot of letters to my younger self. I do a lot of journaling. And one thing I've always said to my younger self, not necessarily 25, but to my younger self, I've always said thank you. Thank you for not giving up when you thought you could make it. And you didn't have the courage to go on. You had just enough faith to keep going. And you gave me an opportunity to come into my own and to become the person that God had called me to be. And I believe that if the Lord will let me see 73, 75, 80, whatever, then one day I'll be writing letters to my 53-year-old self, continue to say thank you. Because there is so much more work to be done. And I believe He will take me so much farther. So I just appreciate her for not giving up on me. Not giving up when it just looked like all hope was gone. It looked like she wasn't going to make it. And she was like, I'm just ready to throw in the towel. But she kept going. So I'm able to stand here before you today knowing that all is well. Praise God. My faith has become stronger. I've become stronger, and I thank God for that. So some advice I would give to my 25-year-old self, that I would still give to myself today and to all of you. And you all have not perfected this, but baby, I am still working on me. One of the very first things that I would say is plan your life. Plan your life, because days turn into weeks, and weeks turn into months, and months turn into years. And you don't want to look back and say, my, where did the time go? And we hadn't got anything done. We hadn't grown from where we were. Plan your life. People spend more time planning a vacation than they spend planning their life. So I would encourage you, plan your life. I have a calendar. I don't always do well with this, but I work on me. I do remember Ms. Humphries asked me one day, we were on our way to a leader me school in another district. We was driving the Haywood County school vehicle. It quit on us. Somebody had to come get us. She asked me that day, she said, what's your 5-year plan? I didn't have one. It bothered me and bothered me and it bothered me. But I'm so happy to say that since you asked me that, Ms. Humphries, I have got my EDS. All right. I have got promotion from teacher to administrator. I've opened a nonprofit called Steam Cafe. I've written a book. So I've done some things. And I asked the Lord just the other day, because this is confusing sometimes, because, you know, in the church, especially when I was young in the church, one message would say, wait on God. Don't move too soon, wait on God. Then the other message would say, God is waiting on you. So I'm like, okay, God, whose turn is it anyway? I asked the Lord just the other day, I said, now Lord, what do you want? Because again, so many times He opened doors. It's like He opened a door like a gentleman and just said, walk on in, baby. And I just walked on in. And at other times, doors didn't open right away. And I said, well, Lord, what do you want? I know He has a perfect plan. I said, do you want to tell me what your plan is and I follow your plan? Or do you want me to plan something and you're going to bless it? And that was my question. A few days later, I heard Miles Monroe say this on YouTube. He said, God has a plan for your life, but God does not plan your life for you. But I know that God works in us the willing to do. So I started working on that plan, and I'm trusting God to bless that plan. And I said, Lord, anything that's not in your will, take away my desire to do that thing. Y'all, God has this thing all figured out. You know, I don't want to be running around like a chicken in my head because I'm trying to figure out what to do next. So my next piece of advice would be to manage your time. Manage it wisely, and don't let other people spend your time for you. People will call you and say, hey, I need this like yesterday. And you stop doing what you're doing to go take care of their things, and your things don't get done. You allow people to plan, you allow people to manage your time. Plan your time, plan your life, plan your time, and manage your time wisely. There is a quote that says, poor planning on other people's part does not constitute an emergency on my part. You do not have to stop your life to take care of somebody else's business because they've been playing with it. Also, in planning your life, Jim Yard has a quote that says, if you don't design your own plan, you'll end up working someone else's plan. And I guess how much other people have planned for you? Not very much. People are not taking the time to make a good plan for your life. Plan your own life. And the last one is the one that I struggle with the most. Stop procrastinating. God has put so much in us, and I know He gives me so many things to do. And sometimes I think to myself, I'll get that done later. I'll do that tomorrow. Tomorrow's my promise. Do that today. That's where it says, the wealthiest place on earth is the graveyard. Because in the graveyard, you'll find innovations and dreams that were not fulfilled, books that were not written, songs that have not been sang, all these things that God put in us to bless others. You never see a tree eating its own fruit. The fruit is for nourishment for those that come in the path of that tree. What God has put in us is for others. So do what God has called you to do. Don't stifle the blessings that God has put in you to be a blessing to other people. And legacy. There is a phrase that says, if she can see her, she can be her. I want to be the her that she can see. I need young ladies to be able to look at me and say, hey, Miss Clark carries herself well, she has integrity, she's educated, she has passion. I want to be, not necessarily like me, but have those qualities and know that if I can do it, they can do it. I'm still standing on the shoulders of Ketanji Brown. I'm still standing on the shoulders of Michelle Obama. I'm still standing on the shoulders of Kamala Harris, Madeleine Albright. All those women who have come before, I've looked at them and I said, you know what? If they can be great at what they do, I can be the best me that God has created me to be. And in me doing that, again, I just want to be the her that she can see. Thank you.
Okay, let's go home. I'm not ready for this. Oh my goodness, these ladies. And isn't it wonderful how it just flows together? Well, I'm in. My name is Melinda Eckley-Posey. I'm an associate professor of art at Christian Brothers University, and I'm new in town. Not really. I've been in Brownsville for 8 years, but you might have looked at your program and went, who is that? Well, let me fill you in. I'm a Yankee who migrated, with the geese because of warmer weather, and I still call it pop, I'm sorry. And I'm an early bird from Michigan, and I came ahead of Ford. They finally got smart. They headed down this way too. Good geese flock together. Over the past 8 years, we've called Brownsville home. We poured our blood, sweat, and tears into the Von Burgess house on Main Street. It's the big one with the tower. Buying an old home gave us a little grace with being a newbie. People always ask us where we're from and geolocated us by our home state. My husband's from Mississippi, which is a much more appropriate state to be from, at least around these parts. And our home address. We recently updated the signage to reflect its history, and we didn't put our names on it. In another 40 years, it might be known as the Posey House, but for now, we realize that's about 50 years from now, and the new sign's gonna last us at least
a little bit past that. We love this old house. That show is on a loop at our house. We love its quirks and its creaks, and we've always referred to it as our forever home as we battle the elements of time trying to wear it down. I was describing our house to one of my coworkers at the United Nations, and he lives in an old farmhouse in France across the border. And he described his house as newish. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he was like, oh, 1757. I was like, oh, okay. But new houses there are anything younger than 1800s, and he falls into the newish category. His house always has a slight slant to the left like mine does, and we're comparing notes. But old is in the eye of the beholder, as is the new. I grew up in a town a lot like Brownsville, a farm town where everyone knew everyone. Slightly smaller, we got the third stoplight after I left for college. This was a town where my mom was an outsider because she came as a high school student and stayed for the next 40 years being a kindergarten teacher. A lot of teachers' kids, a lot of preachers' kids here. My dad, despite being the high school football coach for 25 years, was still referred to as the new guy. They're about to be new in town again. They're moving from their home of 40 years to retire to be closer to the grandkids, 1.6 miles away, which gives their son-in-law a little bit of comfort. He's grateful for them not to be on the back porch. Their grandson, has offered our spare room, saying, you can have it until the end of your days. I was like, well, where did you come up with that language? But whether it's, a spare room or their eventual home, they're going to be new again, this time in Brownsville. Perhaps they'll have an experience like we did when we sat down in church for the first time, and a woman in the front pew eagerly turned around and said, we've heard all about y'all. And she proceeded to tell us which house we bought, what our occupations were, how long we've been married, and oh, by the way, do you have a blood type? I was a little worried word had gotten out. Well, I pray that my parents get a welcome like we did. When we moved into our home and we'd been there for about a few weeks, we had a timid knock on the door and welcomed an older gentleman and his wife in, and they held a plate of rolls. Miss Ann and Dean Pettigrew went on to welcome us and tell us about Brownsville and their experience of being new in town. They moved in, they talked about moving in like it was last week. I asked Miss Ann when they moved to Brownsville, and she casually responded, 60 years ago. I giggled. She said, I still remember what it's like to be new. Rolls help. Oh boy, did they. They were like munching on a cloud. They were amazing. I say all this because more new folks are coming. Some that will want to help out. You got to make places and spaces for them to do that. I tell my students that graphic designers, which is what I teach, are oftentimes not seen, but their objects are. We are the non-splashy cousin of the art world. For every diva Picasso, you've got a William Morris working away on the wallpaper. We make things to help. So I'm new, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I make Brownsville a little bit brighter. The colorful boxes on the square that you see as you drive down Main, my design classes made those. See, I'm the new guy. I created the Brownsville Press logo, their style guide, the actual newspaper itself. I worked on the early editions with my toddler and baby crawling around the newspaper office at 3 a.m. If you had lunch at Livingston's, the menu and the website, I just did that. My design students did the windows at the center. We've done murals up the side. We did the Brownsville electric guitar at the amp. My husband and I painted 1,000 square feet in the back wall in about a week. But no one knows what the new guy did, and I'm fine with that. Let's give it another 40 years, and then we can put a sign up. And I'm comfortable still being the new guy. That's what I tell my 25-year-old self. It's okay. Little did I know even Ann Pettigrew held that title. Not only was she new, but she also was part of the welcome wagon. We need to be more like Ann. As the new guys roll into town, we need to be armed with rolls and welcoming smiles. Brownsville's going to change with Ford. In some ways for the better, and in some ways an uncomfortable stretch. I'm the president of Main Street Brownsville. Our job is to preserve and to enrich the downtown that we cherish. It only takes looking back at 50 years worth of photos to see how Brownsville's changed from bustling stores and movie theaters and roller rinks to vacant buildings. Now we're creating a district that's reimagining itself again. Main Street is working to make our town shine. From commissioning artwork to cleaning up eyesores of old buildings and finding the right person with a caring heart for preservation to make them new again. Hosting events that expand our neighborhood a little bit more every time. Things are changing. Even with growth and improvements, there's always going to be people that yearn for the days back before Ford came. Now, for the days, we can't go back to those. I'm sorry, the genie's out of the bottle, the new guys are coming to town, they're going to stay, they're going to talk, they're going to change things, and they might even call it pop, I'm sorry. So 8 years ago, when we were looking at places to move around Memphis, Brownsville stood out among the rest of the communities. It had a square that was waking up, so much character that rivaled Natchez, Mississippi with how many historic homes it had. It appreciated the arts, giving space to places like the Minefield. It honored its music history with Pride and Tina and Sleepy John. It had a variety of parks. It was walkable, idyllic. It was close to nature. It actually feels like our backyard. We're so lucky. It was welcoming. It was a little dash of both of our hometowns. We chose Brownsville to be our home, to be our new family. If you've always lived here, let me enlighten you a little bit. Finding home in a place that feels like home is hard. It's hard. So I recently switched from working in Jackson to Memphis, and so many people have asked, well, why don't you move? Both my husband and I work in Memphis now, and even with the rising gas prices, Brownsville, we assure them, is home. It's our chosen home. It's our sweet spot. My sons are still considered new. They've only ever known our home. They're born here. They're fascinated with all the things that make Brownsville special and theirs. And when Elias, my older son, was learning his address at 629 West Main Street, Brownsville, Tennessee, my youngest son, Ezra, was learning how to pray. And in an effort to be like his brother, he incorporated Main Street into his prayers. It stuck. Now, 3 years on, his prayer goes like this. Bless us, God. Bless us, Main Street, Brownsville, Tennessee. Bless our family and our friends. And we don't correct him. We let him pray for our street and our town. He's still new. We need prayer and direction to accept the new as we do reconciling the old. We will have a past that people in the present are going to have to encounter and deal with. My prayer is that we change as we grow. We will accept the new alongside the old and eventually put a sign on it.
Wow. Do please give our speakers another round. Every year they blow me away. Their stories are rich, they're powerful, and they're transformative. Give them another round. To them was, tell us what you want us to know about you. And when you think about the kinds of things that they've shared, it really took a lot of courage for them to open themselves, to be vulnerable, to let you see how they've become to this place. So, and the thing that I have been so humbled by is that whenever I call, even women who say, well, I don't know, that's not me, they eventually say, well, sure, I'm honored to be asked. And they don't, nobody has said, oh, it's my turn, and why have you just now called me? Most of the time I get, why are you calling me? And somebody said, oh, it's for no, you bet you they did. So, without further ado, let me say thank you one more time to Sonia for live streaming our program today. So that people all around the world can see what you said. Oh yeah, you're all around the world now, Lisa. And next time you'll read your emails. Thank you all so much for coming. I always pray, Lord, please let somebody come. And then the Lord always answers my prayer. And I'm grateful to you for all that you are and for all that you do and for the encouragement that you give to me in the ministry that God has given me. So without further ado, let me ask you for one more round of applause for our phenomenal women. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, friends are friends forever, that the Lord is the Lord of them. And my very best friend since second grade, Gloria, is here today, and she is my heart. And we've been together since second grade, so Gloria, just stand up and wave your hand or do something, okay? Through thick and thin, we've been together, and so I'm grateful to all of you for all that you are and all that you do and all that you will do to make the world a better place. Somebody said here today, you gotta leave the world better than you found it. And I think you see that the world really, really does need every single one of us to give our very best and all that we have. So go forward and be blessed and keep shining.
Thank you.